pads are useful for their purpose, but they are no substitute for brains.
All right, here we go.
I have to say, well done, Ray. Well done. Well played, my adversary. Well played.
Phoenix isn't gay, but if he was, he'd pick Freemo.
Oh yeah, he'd be living down there with you in the bunker, man. Woo!
Once you go free, you always do the Z.
Like one day of not going to Duncan, and you could get a controller, a new Xbox, possibly even a cord.
And now, here's our host to tell you more about what's coming up next. Host? Go, host. There you go, host.
Welcome to BGFG episode 406. I'm your host, Chris Phoenix. Not joining me this week is Mr. Freemo Z. And the reason why, apparently, is because all I got was a text message that said, all it says was, Elon hit me up. Gotta go help with SpaceX. What the hell? Okay, I'd love to hear more about that, but he's not answering his phone since then. So I'm just going to wrangle this up on my own. It's a little bit cold up here in the Northeast. I don't know what happened. June, it was 80 degrees yesterday. I sound like an old man. 80 degrees yesterday. Today, it's like freezing. Like I'm wearing jackets and stuff, and I closed all the windows in the house. Freaking cold. So let's just get it started because we have a good size show. And yeah, that's about it.
BGFG News. You heard it here third.
So as you see on the picture on the side of me here, right over there, is AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, New York State Representative. Probably the best looking representative in the government right now. She is good looking. But what you got to love about her is her tenacity. She just doesn't take any shit. Just that simple. She doesn't. So what she did, she just called out Big Pharma during a House hearing, which I thought was just awesome. She was arguing that public schools should be able to buy the public should be able to buy into Medicare. And to paraphrase, basically she said that Big Pharma is just too greedy, and they are. We've talked about it on the show numerous times. Just in 2022, Fierce Pharma, which is a site, they reported that the top 20 drug manufacturers ranked in the billions of dollars over the last 2 years. Of course, that also, adds to the whole pandemic and everything that came out of the pandemic and vaccines and this and that. But, I mean, billions and billions of dollars. Pfizer just recently went past $1 billion a year mark. And when you're raking in $37 billion from the vaccine alone, you're really you're bigger than you think. And the sales for Johnson & Johnson for 21 to 22 were at a staggering $94 billion. And people cannot afford healthcare right now. I mean, there's pills out there that you're going to pay, $80, $90, $100, per bottle fill. And it's not even a full bottle. Like you might think it's full. It's not a full bottle. It's like 7 or 8. It's enough for the month. And that's insane. I mean, I know from my personal experience and relatives, it's a catch-22 because you have a pill that's helping you with your heart. But then the side effects for that are dramatic. So you have to have a pill to counter the side effects. But that pill causes a couple of side effects like, you're lethargic or something. So then you need another pill to cover that up or to cover that side effect. It's staggering when you see these companies pulling in $37 billion or $94 billion. And AOC went on to state that if pharma was a public entity and a nonprofit, then everyone would have affordable health care. And she's not wrong. Affordable health care has been an issue for a very long time. And others, even on the committee, which that they're paid for, bought and paid for right there, balked at the whole idea of that. So when you have just to make it clear, so we don't do a lot of political stuff. We try to veer away from that. But I want it to be clear that if you're not into the political scene, and you just don't care or don't know because you don't care, all the people that are representing Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, they're all at these meetings and committees, and they're paying, they're one of the donors that are helping some of these congressional people with their campaign funds and things like that. Now, with that said, they're expecting certain things in return, like when you're on a committee like this with AOC, that you're not going to approve a bill that's going to close down Big Pharma and make it a nonprofit. That's just not something that's going to happen. Granted, it's bigger than that. I mean, it's good for her for trying and pointing that out, but the odds of getting it to be a public entity is slim to none, at least not in the foreseeable future. It's going to take a long time for that to happen. But she did challenge them to come up with an alternative to drive the cost down. And that's what I love when people get into power and do things like this. Fine. I'm wrong. Not a problem. Show me a way that works. Show me a way that gets affordable health care to people, but yet doesn't cost a lot. And I'll support it. And they never do this, which is a huge problem. All she got was crickets. So she's like, come up with an alternative, and I'll stop bitching about this. And like everybody else in the committee is like, which is sad. It's just sad. I don't like to see any of that at all. Things should be easier than that. And we've been talking a lot lately about AI, ChatGPT and others. We've been talking about that for a while. It's a thing, and Fremo and I decided to not talk about it too much anymore because it's just a non-issue. AI is great. AI is great for helping you out. AI is great for finding certain pieces of information or helping you create a, say if you have to do well, the kids are using it for like book reports and stuff. I know for me, I had to write a paper on something a little while ago when ChatGPT first came out, and I couldn't get started. So what I did was I plugged in a bunch of information that I needed into ChatGPT, and it came out with a paragraph that I could start off with, and that just got me rolling, and I was able to do the project. Some kids use it for their homework, but we've talked about it on the show before that it's not perfect, and you definitely don't want it to be perfect, but it is not perfect. Even the creator of ChatGPT said it's not perfect. And now we're starting to see that it's not so great. And in the news this week, you might have seen that a New York lawyer is actually facing sanctions because of it. It's hard for me to get this story out without giggling. So a New York lawyer, Stephen Schwartz, attorney from the law offices of Can We Cheat Him and How? No, I'm kidding. It's law offices of Levito, and Oberman. His name's Stephen Schwartz. He recently tried to use ChatGPT to write a legal brief. Schwartz said that he used the chatbot to supplement his research, which we all know bullshit is complete bullshit. You just wanted to get away with doing something and not having to actually do it yourself. So he wanted to do the whole brief. When ChatGPT cited 3 cases in the brief, Schwartz just put him out there. And when he put him out there, the judge was like, these don't exist. And when Schwartz asked the AI if these were legit cases, like beforehand, this is what he said. This is what he said to the judge. He's like, well, I asked ChatGPT if these cases were legit, and they said yes. In fact, ChatGPT responded with stating that it could be found at reputable legal databases. No, they can't because they don't exist. And the judge called him out on this. So now he's going to be getting all sorts of sanctions and possibly even not being a lawyer anymore, and rightfully fucking so, for doing stupid shit like that. You get paid. You spent all that money to go to college. You get paid a fucking boatload of money, like boatload, and you're going to do something like that. That law firm, it can't be, this guy's going to be out of a job, or he's going to be doing legwork for all the other lawyers at the law firm. That's pretty much what it is. Now, that was ChatGPT. AI can be used for other things, and this is where us geeks and the BGFG show, this is where we said that this is where the shit should go. Because AI has good uses. And one of them is finding like an antibiotic that destroys one of the world's deadliest superbugs. This is what AI is good for. The superbug is called, and I'm going to butcher this, Acinetobacter pneumoniae. And I'm not even going to attempt to say that shit again. It's an antibiotic-resistant bacteria. This causes infections in premature babies and people with compromised immune systems. My wife has got a compromised immune system. My oldest daughter has a compromised immune system. During COVID, it was extremely scary because you didn't know how COVID was going to react to anything. You didn't know really what was going on. So you weren't sure if I was going to bring something home and kill my family. No joke. That's because we didn't know enough. We didn't know. Now we know it's just, the next evolution of the flu for the most part. But you didn't know that then. And when you have a compromised immune system, your body cannot fight back. So the fact that this bacteria is even worse. The bug can survive on all sorts of surfaces too for very, very long periods of time. So you never knew. This is where during COVID, where we had to wipe everything down, same type of idea. It can cause pneumonia. It can cause sepsis, meningitis, all of which can be fatal. This was legit, this superbug. And because the superbug can be picked up, it can pick up DNA from other bacteria, it's been almost indestructible. This is what, and my wife being in the medical field, this is what she talks about a lot, is that there's constant mutations. It doesn't end. And to dumb it down for all of us and all the sheeple is that when you have the flu, this year when you get the flu shot, or let's just say next year when you get the flu shot, that flu shot is from this year's flu. It's going to help your body build an immune system, like a lower grade flu, to help your body build an immune system for the next mutation of said flu. Now we can look at it as COVID. More or less the same thing. I know people are going to debate. I'm going to get...
Oh, that's going to give me some hate mail.
I know I'm going to get hate mail for it, but COVID essentially turned out to be a more drastic mutation of the flu. So that's what we're going to be dealing with for many, many years going on. But when it's indestructible, what are you going to do? But AI has now predicted a compound that can actually beat it, and they're calling it abusin. This is huge, people, just huge. The process will also help develop treatments for other horrible diseases like MRSA. MRSA is another nasty one. And this is what AI is supposed to be for. AI is supposed to be there to develop and look at these compounds and test these compounds, millions of them, way faster than we can. And then the ones that I don't know exactly, but let's just say it spits out 15 that could possibly work and kill this bacteria. Now we only have 15 to go through instead of 5,000. Everything's done a lot quicker now, and that's because of AI. This is where AI is very, very good. But ChatGPT is not something you should be doing your legal briefs with. It's just, it struck me as funny. But it's good to see that the medical industry, and we talked about Big Pharma before, but it's good to see that the medical professionals are actually using AI. And I can tell you that through this research, doing these multiple stories, I can tell you that Big Pharma is very they have an extreme limit on using AI because they don't need to. They're making so much money, they can just keep doing it their old-fashioned way. These are smaller places that are making these jumps and these leaps forward. And then they're unfortunately going to sell them to Big Pharma because Big Pharma is the only one that can afford it. So it's a vicious cycle when you look at all of this stuff, but at the same time, look at the positives of it. We have AI that is actually being utilized to create a better life. This is going to help millions of people. It's just a good thing to do. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Microsoft recently did a Microsoft build, and this is going to be a lot of new Windows features that are coming down. We've talked about it on the show before, and I'm kind of glad Fremo's out here for a couple of stories this week. I've been using Windows 11 as my daily driver for quite a while. I was very happy with Windows 10. Windows 11 as a daily driver, I am not disappointed. As coming from a Mac land, an Apple person, and dealing with, I mean, we would record the show and I dump it down to my network, and then I go onto the Mac and I would edit the crap out of it on the Mac. It's always easier, and that's how we started the show, actually. But now there's really no need to do that because, again, I still love my Apple products, but Windows 11's really nice, and I haven't had any sort of issues with it. But there's still some rough edges they need to work out. And I think this Microsoft build this year, And I kind of like Windows and where they're going, and it's pretty good. So let's dive into the Microsoft build, or at least the Windows operating system portion, because there's a lot. So updates. Usually they drop the first Tuesday of every month, and now Microsoft has changed this to calling them moments, and they can drop literally whenever they feel like it, which is not a bad thing either. I mean, working in the tech world, it was good to know that the first Tuesday of every month you had your latest big updates, but now they can drop them whenever, which is also a good thing. So the latest one is going to be called Moment 3. The first few are optional and will not arrive until mid-June, though. If you want to get them sooner, then all you need to do is go to Settings, click on Check for Updates, and select Get Latest Updates as soon as they're available. And you'll get these as soon as they become available. Or you can sign up for the Insider program. I'm an insider, so I get some of these a little bit earlier. And here's what we know so far. So I'm just going to run down the list because some of them are, I mean, let's be honest, you're not going to use. Wider widgets. No one uses the widgets, but apparently they're going to be wider and be more available. Whatever, nobody cares. Sensor settings. This is good for laptops that have presence sensors. So essentially, like when you walk away from your laptop, it'll immediately start dimming and then eventually go, I want to say go to sleep, but eventually it'll log you out and shut down the screen. Very good for battery life. Very good for everybody that's using it. VPN icon. If you're using a VPN, which I'm not going to go into whether you should or you should. That's your personal preference. I think it's foolish. But on your laptops especially, or even on your desktop, when you have the Wi-Fi icon, you'll see it in your lower right. That little Wi-Fi icon, if you're connected via VPN, you'll see a little lock above that. It's nice. It's a nice little feature. At least you know that you'll be on Wi-Fi and that you can continue to have the illusion of that you're protected and private. Bluetooth expansion, allowing low energy audio for earbuds, kind of like the Galaxy Buds. This is also handy, especially if you have a laptop. Using wireless headsets one day I might shift to that. I don't know. But using wireless headsets is always a positive because you can move around, especially if you're on a laptop at a coffee shop or something. You don't want to be tethered in case you have to move quickly for some reason. Account badging. No one wants this, but what it will do is put an exclamation on your Windows account name so that you have to click on it. Most likely this is going to be an ad. They're starting to do this now. There's notifications that pop up every once in a while. And if you've seen it, which you probably have if you're a Windows user, every once in a while you'll see an exclamation point. You'll click on it, it'll say Windows needs your attention or Microsoft needs your attention for your account, or there's a problem with your account. It never is. It's almost always just a way to add, to give you another ad. I tell a lot of customers, and whether it's partially truthful or not, it just makes them feel better. I tell them that every once in a while, Microsoft just wants to make sure that this account is still valid and that you know your password, which isn't untrue, but at the same time, it's really not needed. But that's what they're going to do. The print screen button, that'll be now opening the snipping tool, which I think is great. I don't know anybody that's used the print screen for print screen. If you're going to print something, you always hit Control P, or you hit the printer icon in whatever browser or window you have open. Snipping tool is actually really, really good if people haven't given it a try yet. You can search for snipping tool on your computer itself. If you just hit the Windows key, type snipping tool, you should be able to open it. Soon they're going to be able to do full screen recording with the snipping tool as well, which is also handy for teaching new hires or teaching fellow employees how to do certain things. So that's the print screen button. OneDrive storage indicator. Finally, they're going to show you the size of the drive and how much you have left in it or how much you're using in it. About time, because you never really know. Two-factor authentication. We talked earlier on another episode about how now you can plug in your phone, and now you even have more connectivity with your Apple iPhone on your Windows 11 machine, just like Samsung has always had with their Galaxy products. So when you get a two-factor authentication, usually you have to pop open your phone, see it, remember what it was, and type it into your computer. Now, as long as you have your phone connected to your computer, you'll be able to cut and paste that two-factor authentication into whatever you need to do. Very handy. Kind of dangerous, but still handy. Clock seconds. Apparently, we need to add a seconds hand to your clock now. Don't know anybody that uses the clock on Windows, but apparently you need a seconds hand now, so let's just throw that in there for whatever reason. You gotta love to be the guy that's collected a paycheck, probably double what I make in a year, And this was his whole job for the past 2 years, was create a second hand on a clock that nobody uses. Brilliant. Bing Chat AI shortcut. Is it going to be in the search now? No, thank you, but it's going to be there. Adaptive lighting control. No idea why that's needed. Not even a clue. One of the big things that came out, the last few are kind of big. WinRAR support. So all compression formats are now going to be integrated. And it's about damn time. WinZip, 7-Zip, WinRAR, all of them are going to be able to be open now within Windows, automatically integrated. You're not going to need to download another product, which again is where a lot of this malware and stuff comes from. Windows Copilot, bringing AI to Windows for everything. I don't know. Again, we talked about AI twice already in the show. One time for bad, it's not going to show you the true stuff, and one time for good, where it helps pharma. I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know how it's going to work inside your Windows machine. I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that. Taskbar ungrouping. This is kind of cool. So when you're using your Windows machine at your business or for work, and you have multiple screens open of, say, Internet Explorer or Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Microsoft Edge, or Google Chrome. When you have multiple windows open, they group them all together. So you have to hover over it and then just scan and pick the window that you want. Now you're not going to have to do that. Now they're going to have allow you to ungroup them. Now, when you ungroup them, that's going to be handy if you're quickly switching. Now, a lot of us geeks will always use the Alt-Tab feature, but you might be able, maybe you're the type that just needs it ungrouped in the taskbar for some reason. I don't know. It's nice that they're gonna throw that feature out there. And one of the other things is Windows Backup. I think that's going to be very, very cool. Windows Backup saves files, folders, layout locations, apps, and more to the cloud. That is handy. I can't tell you how much I'm going to enjoy explaining to people that they can now do their own backups and not have to rely on, oh, I didn't know I had to back it up. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? Idiots. So that's what happened at, there's a couple of other things I want to save for later on in the show because they fit better there, but that was essentially Microsoft Build. So again, you can go into your updates and you can check off, get the latest updates. You can also sign up for the Microsoft Insider program, which will get you some things a little bit earlier. All right, so that's the end of this week's news. We're going to get into music now. Our music section this week is a band called, I'm pretty sure I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's Mainskin. And the song is called Supermodel. This is an Italian band formed in 2006. This is a catchy tune. I kind of like this tune, and I'm glad we had a chance to play it. And we're going to get on the other side for some stick style and some other news. So here's Mainskin Supermodel, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Alone at parties.
Oh, main skin 90 supermodel. And I could in the early 90s, and yeah, a lot of models that I met, especially music video models. Yeah, very much love the cocaine. Very much so. So, right now, going to be drinking on some Modelo, and I'm going to take another sip for my coworkers. Recently, my company let go of a boatload of coworkers. Just an absolute exodus. So, I'm going to take a quick little shot ski, and this is to all of you. Good luck in your future endeavors. So let's get into this week's stick style and see if we can not ruin that.
Gaming.
All right, first up in this week's stick style is we're going to start off with Game Pass for June. This is the beginning of June. And those that follow stick style, I am currently working on the highlights for May, so that should be dropping soon as well. Game Pass for June. We got Car Mechanic Simulator 2021, Slayers X, Terminal Aftermath, The Big Con, Amnesia, The Bunker, which at first I thought Freemo snuck in there. Hypnospace Outlaw, Rune Factory 4 Special, Stacking, Dorgdong, I don't know what the hell that's all about. And then Games with Gold, you got Adios and The Veil Shadow of the Crown. I've said it before, Game Pass is good for multiple things, but man, some of these games, they're not as good as they should be. I don't know. And then you look at PlayStation. So PlayStation's Plus started June 7th. You're going to get God of War, which is a great game. Naruto to Boruto. Shinobi Striker, which I'm assuming anime fans love, and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, which is essentially PlayStation's equivalent of the Brawler for Nintendo. That's basically it. But Sony also had their State of Play. So there was a lot of State of Play. There was a lot of stuff that was announced, a lot of games, big and small. So we're just going to try to see if we can get over a little bit of those. There's a heist first-person shooter from Haven Studios called Fair Games. It looks really good, like really, really good. I put a link in the show notes so you can watch the some of the videos that were announced, of the games that were announced. They have a co-op third-person shooter called Helldivers, another game that looks absolutely amazing. First-person shooter with superpowers called Immortals of Avium. I don't know, it didn't look that great. A very cyberpunk first-person shooter called Ghost Runner 2. I didn't even know there was our first one, but apparently there's a 2. There's a Chinese martial arts meets steampunk role-playing game called Phantom Blade Zero. It very much reminds me of Ghost of Tsushima. So those that really enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima, this is going to be one that you want to pick up, Phantom Blade Zero. No idea how to explain it, but Sword of Sea. I just watched the video. It doesn't make any sense to me. First-person puzzler, Talos Principle 2, the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3, which is Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater. That's an exciting thing on the PlayStation side. Fantasy Builder, Towers of Agbasa, Alan Wake 2, Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is one of the big ones. Street Fighter 6, again, big one. Teaser for Destiny 2, The Final Shape, which I believe is going to be the final chapter. My youngest plays that, so I believe that's what he said. Bungie is going to be revamping their 90s first-person shooter called Extraction, or their 90s first-person extraction shooter called Marathon. So this is the game that launched Bungie. This is before Halo. It was called Marathon, pretty badass. And now they're going to actually revamp the whole thing as a first-person shooter. And of course, how could you not talk about the State of Play without talking about Spider-Man 2, which is apparently double the map size and hot switchable during the game between Spider-Man and Miles. So that's going to be really, really kind of cool. One of the things that I wanted to bring up this week as well, in the gaming section, was something that was going on with Steam. Now, if you want to play games, and I love competition. Competition makes everything better for us consumers. There's GOG, there's a couple of other, everybody's got their own launcher, which you can buy all the games from, but there's no place that you can really have one essential place to go to buy all the games except outside of Steam. And Steam does it, I feel, very, very well. If you are just a PC gamer, no consoles at all in your life, you're not interested in any of the PlayStation Plus or Xbox Game Pass Ultimate stuff, then Steam is absolutely 100% the way to go. You have a chat. You have chat in there for you and your fellow friends. You have independent games, solo games, one-offs, and you have a lot of classic games as well as new AAA games. Well laid out, very easy to download, very easy to play. Game saves are saved in the cloud, so you never have to worry about it. Your computer shits the bed. You reinstall the game, which may or may not take forever since games are fucking gigantic now. But you may or may not, and you're going to have access. So it's definitely a good thing. But let's talk about what they did recently. So recently, there was a conversation about a Steam emulator. Now, emulators have been a thing forever. You download an emulator onto your computer, you're able to play older games or ROMs. So for years, people would be downloading emulators for, I can't remember the one I had, that would allow me to play Atari 5200 games or Atari games. You can play these games as if you were playing on those older consoles. Now, most of the time, you don't get in any trouble. Most of the time, it's like older games, and they really don't give a shit that you're playing them because they're just older. And then they started clamping down on them because you had things like the mini Nintendo, Nintendo NES, and Nintendo did a bunch of those, and you had the Atari relaunching, so they started cracking down on them a little. But they still don't fit all the needs. Like, we still don't have any sort of emulation or anything outside of recently in the Nintendo store. You can get some N64 games, but still there's other games out there that you may have loved growing up that you just don't have access to because they never put them on a bigger channel. Nintendo's never been happy about emulators, not ever. Ever, ever, ever. But there is one called Dolphin. It's been on the Steam store since March. Nintendo did not like that and all filed a cease and desist, and Valve pulled the emulator. Nintendo has a track record of this sort of thing. In February, they subpoenaed Discord for personal information of somebody that leaked the Breath of the Wild art book. April, there were dozens of copyright strikes against gameplay videos on Twitch. And most recently, they had a Switch emulator tool called Lotpick pulled from the GitHub store. Now, I get it. Nintendo's trying to protect their property by disabling or having Steam pull the Dolphin emulator. I don't it's tough for me to know where to stand on this. I get Nintendo's point. It's their intellectual property. But you're not releasing a lot of the games. And if I can download an emulator and just pop in or play games that you're not even releasing, I think that's okay. I don't think that's a problem. You're not infringing on anybody. You're not making a huge living off of the Dolphin emulator, if any living at all. In the early days, a lot of the emulators were free. They were just like homebrew stuff. But this one, the thing that really pissed me off about this story more, though, is that I found out in the research that Steam actually contacted Nintendo ahead of time. So as soon as this happened in March, where Dolphin was put on Steam, Steam willingly put it on there and allowed it to go on there, but then quickly contacted Nintendo to save their own ass. They contacted Nintendo, said there's an emulator on there, and of course Nintendo, because of their track record, they just started filing the litigation papers so they could turn around and say, okay, now officially you have to pull it, cease and desist. I think that's kind of bullshit on Steam's part. I think Steam should do a better job. If you know it's an emulator is going to get you in trouble, either let the developer know that you're going to contact Nintendo and see if it's okay. And the developer can do whatever they want. If the developer wants to pull their game at that point or their emulator at that point, then have at it. But at least let them know. And then, or don't contact Nintendo at all. Let Nintendo worry about it. Let Nintendo file lawsuits. Let Nintendo figure it out and send you a cease and desist. And then you'll argue it a little bit and pull it. That could take, we would have had that emulator for 4 or 5 more months. I don't know. But the fact that you put it on your site and then you contacted Nintendo so they could start the legal proceedings, that's bullshit. That's complete bullshit, in my opinion. And that's not a way to keep fans. Not at all. Who's going to trust you again, Steam? Why, so you can turn turncoat that quick? I get you got a business to run. I get that. But don't forget what your business is and who your business is for. Gamers are very fickle people. We don't want to hear your bullshit. We'll quickly leave and go to something else. We don't need your shit. We'll find another way. There's always another way online, especially for gamers. Speaking of gamers and always finding another way, Apple's still trying to get their share of the mobile market. Now, Apple Arcade's been around for a little while, but it hasn't really gotten a lot of traction because it's for mobile. A lot of people play on mobile, and it was huge when Apple actually allowed Fortnite on their devices. You had people playing Fortnite on iPads, iPhones. You had people playing Fortnite everywhere. And then you get into a pissing contest with them, and suddenly Fortnite and anything with the, was it Unreal Engine, is not even allowed on Apple Arcade anymore. But they're still trying to get their fair share, and I get that. I actually have a subscription that I got through purchases of some other Apple product. So it's still a purchase I have, and it's not super bad. There is some arcade games that are very, very cool. Hex is one of them. But it is subscription-based, and it's been tough to justify having a subscription-based model and paying Apple for arcade games when there's not a huge amount of games and you're not really pushing a huge amount of games. And if I may say so, I think it's mostly because Apple's been working very, very hard on, again, being on the insider side. Apple's been working very hard on not only creating an ecosystem that they want to continue on with their own chipsets and their own silicon, like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, their own chips, getting the graphics chips from AMD, building their own RAM chips. That's been huge for them. But they also have to worry about their VR that's going to be announced in a week or two, which I don't think is going to go well at all. But shit, you know what? Good for them. They're all in. Arcade has been secondary. And I think this is, I've said it before, Freemo's disagreed, but I say this is bubbling. This is a bubbling thing. We're bubbling on gaming because DirectX 12 is now usable on Microsoft on Apple Silicon. You have a couple of AAA games coming to Apple Silicon. Unreal Engine now can run on Apple Silicon. So we're getting there. And I think Arcade, like everything else Apple does, I think they're looking in the background to be able to mesh the two. Apple Arcade, I think, will go from being just on the iOS devices and iPad OS now to being on Mac as well. And I think that's going to be all the way from these little tiny puzzler games all the way up to like a King's Quest, all the way up to a AAA game like a Black Ops. I think we're going to see that in the next couple of years. But right now, Apple Arcade is subscription based. It is only on the mobile devices. It's tough to justify that price, but the latest crop might swing you Apple's way if mobile gaming is your thing. Now, there is people I know of and I talk to on a daily that love mobile gaming. Like they don't have a console, they can't afford a console, but they can have their phone. So they get the largest phone they can get, and that's what they game on. If it can produce, like a lot of Samsung people, I know a couple of people in both camps. The Samsung people that I work with always bust the balls of the Apple people, because the Samsung people go home and quickly plug their Samsung phone into a TV or a larger screen and game that way. Where Apple people are more or less kind of screwed on that. Like you could play some arcade games on your Apple TV, but again, that's another investment where you got to buy an Apple TV and buy another controller to synchronize with the Apple TV and play it that way. But it is possible. So the latest mobile gaming that you can get: Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Splintered Fate, good game. Disney Spellstruck, Farming Simulator, Snake IO. I mean, who doesn't like Snake? Come on. Temple Run, There's many, many more, but those were the most recognizable names. Check the link in the show notes, and that'll tell you more of what exactly the games. And if you own a subscription to Apple Arcade, there is no ads in these games, which is the most annoying thing. There is so many games out there right now. There's so many games out there right now that actually have ads. One of the games, I can't remember what it was. One of the people I work with said, "Oh, you should download it and play it." I don't know what their problem was, because the ad for the game clearly showed that you do a certain thing where you try to do a quick puzzle solve to stop a zombie or something like that, and that is never in the fucking game. Like, never in the game. It's so few and far between. I must have played that game for 2 months with that person, and I came across that commercial piece twice. Like, it was really shitty. And there's so many little things you had to do, and if you don't have a huge screen or playing it on a large iPad, there was no point to it. But check out the ad in the show. Check out the link in the show notes. If you do have Apple Arcade, you don't get any ads. So if you find a game you really like, even a puzzler, I use shit. What the hell is the name of that? There's a game that I use when I'm on lunch or I'm waiting for anything. King's Quest. King's Quest is a little tiny puzzler with you do have microtransactions in it if you want them, but it's more or less a little puzzler that I play when I'm on lunch or when I'm waiting in a waiting room or just waiting. It's just something quick you can jump into. And you can play it one-handed, which is kind of fun. And finally this week, let's take a look at man, I was so happy to see this. Corsair. My man. My build that you saw, if you follow the show on YouTube, you've seen my build. That by the way, the build recently got sold. The build is now in the hands of a listener of our show. And they're gonna treat it well and have a good time with it. But huge Elgato Corsair fan. I do like them, and the simple thing is because I like. If you've ever built a PC and you want to make it drip with RGB, 3 problems always existed. Number 1, you had no universal controller. Number 2, shitty software to change any sort of colors. And number 3, you might have multiple brands. Like, you might like a Corsair fan, but you might also like a Logitech keyboard, or you might like a, I don't know. There's so many NZXT controller. I mean, there's so many different things, and it just sucked because none of them work together. None of them. There's never been a cohesive unit. Corsair's taken care of at least 2 of those problems, though. So it's called Corsair iQ Link, and Corsair iQ Link is a brilliant system. So even with the bleeding RGB that I had, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fans that are RGB. Then you had the LCD panel for the AIO. Then you had 4 RAM sticks that are RGB. Then you had the LCD lights that were strip lights that went around 4 sides of the box. Oh yeah, then the 2 fans on the bottom. So all that RGB, each one of those fans, each one of those things had to have a connector. They had the connector to power, and they had the connector to the RGB itself. So you had to buy these things called like a Commander, a Corsair Commander, which has like 7 or 8 connections on it. But because you have more than that, you have to daisy chain it to another one. So it always was a problem. Lee and Lee did a very good job of it when they had fans a couple of years back. They announced fans that would slide together. So you had one input on the, say if you had 3 fans like most people do, you had one input on the top and one output on the bottom. The fans kind of slotted together and made the connection. And a lot of people used that because it was just going to save your aggravation. Corsair came out with iQ Link. It's a smart component ecosystem, as you can see in the picture, or if you click on the link in the show notes. It's brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant. Everything Corsair, and Corsair has a they have a large amount of RGB components, probably the most out of any company, I would think, where Lee and Lee does fans. Other people just do coolers and maybe a couple of fans. They have a lot more. They have keyboards, mouse pads. Shit, what else do I have? Headstands, headphones. Everything's RGB. And it's always been a pain in the ass to get everything to work together. That's why I went Corsair and Elgato, because now I have one program to control it. Are they my favorite? No, I could probably get a different keyboard. I've seen a couple keyboards I've tried that I really liked. The fans, Corsair obviously doesn't make the best fans. There's just better companies out there. But when you care about the RGB and you're going to be, changing between colors or anything else, you don't have that kind of time. So this is across all of Corsair's line. This link does, and it's not just like here's some fans and we're going to do some other things in the future. They really thought this out. All of their line is now capable of doing this. So what it is that their fans, water coolers, liquid coolers, all of their stuff, all daisy chained together into each other. So you have essentially, like the picture that you see here, you have 3 import fans. Import, that's not the right word. 1 exhaust fan, the AIO, then they all go into one single wire into the controller. The controller is a little tiny square that sits on the back side of your case, and that's it. You have the 3 connectors that come out of that controller that go to the motherboard. You're done. You are literally done. Everything daisy chains together, and your wiring looks completely awesome inside your case, and everything's controlled perfectly every time. And what is great is that built into these fans, if you look at Corsair's new fans for the Link system, look at them closely, there is sensors built into the fan shrouds. So now you have temperature sensors built into the fan shrouds, giving you live temperature. I just bought another computer for the studio, and I desperately right now want to build another one with this stuff in it. I really do. There's no way Phoenix Media Group's financial department is going to allow that. I can guarantee you with the amount of money I just spent redoing the studio again. But I would love to. They also just, again, you hope that they just clean up their app a little bit, but the way the app was running with all of the stuff connected made it a lot easier to manipulate and utilize, as opposed to having all these separates, because you never knew what fan was plugged into port 1, what fan was plugged into port 3, where are they on my chassis. This one doesn't. You literally drag and drop. I want that one next to this one, that one next to this one. So I just hope that they continue to keep it like that. It's going to be well worthwhile, and I applaud them for doing this. One last thing before I cut out of this is the entire show. You might have noticed that you have not seen this microphone in the camera. Bing. You haven't seen this in the camera, my Shure 55 Custom. And the reason why is because I have been doing the entire show on the Elgato DX. So this microphone is an XLR. It's called the Wave DX. It's an XLR microphone. I have it plugged into the Wave XLR connector from Elgato. And this mic out of the box is probably one of the best microphones I would suggest for anybody. I wish they came with the small stand. I have a very tiny stand I picked up from eBay. I made it as tiny. It's a little tiny thing, but it does the job. And this microphone, I mean, if you followed our show for a while, I've tested a lot of microphones. Of course, I always go back to my Shure 55 Custom because I love it, and it's part of the show. It's part of the brand of the show. But this microphone's damn good. Out of the box, what I did before the show was I plugged it in to the Wave XLR. And I basically went into my Wavelink software and I shut off all the different VSTs that I had. So you're hearing this literally raw by mic. That's it. There's nothing. OBS has no sort of VSTs loaded. Wavelink has no VSTs loaded. This is simply the mic. About, I say, a fist and a half away from my mouth. That's it. This mic sounds damn good. And as you can see from the picture, if you're watching the show live, the unboxing, I didn't do an unboxing for this because there wasn't really any unboxing. It is literally the microphone and this little tiny stand piece that you can mounted to a arm or a stand. That's it. That's all this thing was. There was nothing else in the box or anything else. It is a good-looking mic. The only thing that threw me off was the fact that usually when you talk to a mic, you don't talk to the top of the mic. Like, I would never turn this and talk here. You talk to the mic. This mic is not like that. This mic, you actually talk to the top of it. The mic sounds good, and the mic is $100. Now, people might be saying, $100, that's a great, you're giving this, absolutely, I'm giving this an endorsement for $100. The problem is, it's an XLR mic. You're not plugging it into your computer or your laptop real quick. You got to get any sort of mixer or adapter. I, of course, recommend the Wave XLR because not only is it designed by the same company, but it's a little tiny box and easy to use. Pretty sure that costs $200. Actually, it'll take me all of 2 seconds to actually go look that up right now. So let me look that up. Elgato Wave XLR. And that is $129. So for $229, you're all into a XLR lifestyle. And most people will tell you that the XLR microphones are the way to go. It's not a bad thing. I've used so many USB mics in my day. The Wave 3 that we've recommended on Stick Style and on BGFG for beginners is still a great way to go. Inexpensive USB microphone that sounds great, but you do have to adjust those somewhat. What happens to make it real easy for you? Those USB things come in digitally. XLRs come out as they are, just as they are. It's what you hear on the microphone is what you're getting into your computer or your interface. So it really depends on your interface. I really like this. For $100, I don't know if you want to go XLR, I would recommend this microphone, 100%. If you want to go USB, I'm still going to recommend the Wave 3 because the software that works for both of these is worth its money. And I think for $229 being all in with a Wave XLR interface and this Wave DX microphone, it's pretty sweet. I cannot lie. It's pretty awesome. All right, let's get to the last segment of this week, and that's for what it's worth. So first up, for what it's worth, I wish Freemo was here for this one. The FBI is absolutely getting out of control. They really are. The Register reported that the FBI is abusing its foreign surveillance powers in a persistent and widespread manner. Does not surprise anybody. Think of this like when we reported a couple of months back where the U.S. decided to buy a bunch of the underground pipeline, internet pipelines in overseas. I want to say it was in the Dead Sea or the Baltic Sea. Because they didn't want China to get a hold of them so that China couldn't intercept communications and spy on people. And we turned around and immediately went, what do you think we're going to do? Now the FBI is definitely abusing its surveillance powers. They're probing protesters, political donors, and others. And they're doing it free will. Then in San Francisco, the police now actually have an option to live monitor private businesses' security cameras ahead of protests in the city. We talked about Nest Camera and the police department having an application to be able to look at your Nest Camera whenever they want. And I understand what people say. Again, doing this for so long, doing broadcasting and reporting for so long, I have to be neutral and I have to stay on either side. And I understand both sides. If I'm worried about a burglar or an armed robber that happened across town, and they have a better chance of catching them by seeing on the Nest cameras, or I should say Ring doorbell, on the Ring doorbells, if they're going down a certain street. If somebody says, oh, I just saw that car take a left on Elmwood, well, they can pull up any cameras that they have available on Elmwood and see if that car went down that road in the past 15 minutes. That's going to help track down that criminal quicker, and I do appreciate that. The FBI, again, was built around the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's designed, the name alone tells you they're investigating different things. This is how we, for good or bad, and sometimes we fail at it, is predict and investigate possible potential threats, terrorist, domestic, or foreign. This is how we have to do that. But where's the limit? That's the question. Where is the limit as to how far we go? Is there a limit as to what we're allowed to do? We talked about the Ring doorbell app being allowed on police, for police to be able to use that for surveillance whenever they want. We've also talked about the policeman that might be involved with a girl or something, or a jilted lover that wants to see who's coming into their house. You don't have the right to do that. You have the right to pull up that camera and see if there's any problems going on in the street, or if there's a shooting across the street or anything else like that. But you don't have the right to do and see who's coming into the house because she broke up with you. It's not a thing. So I don't know how I feel about this, and I'd love to hear you. Send us an email at bgfgshow@gmail.com. I would love to hear what people think about this, because this is really a tough one, especially for me, because you want to be safe. I have cameras all around my house, and at first my family completely was upset with it, that there's no privacy or anything else. I don't put them in their bedrooms, and they're not in the bathroom. But every other common place in this house has a camera. Outside has cameras for safety, literally for safety. I live on a corner lot on a high traffic street. A lot of shit goes down. I can't tell you how many times I've pulled the camera at night because it triggered off because there's some drunk walking in front of my street. Well, if he throws a beer bottle at my window, I want to know who I have to talk to about that. At the same time, if somebody breaks into my house, I have cameras everywhere. You're not going to get away with it. And on the fun side, when my kids, I have 5 kids, and when my kids get into a fight or they knock something over or break something and say, not me, I can now pull up camera footage, which as a parent, if you're a parent, you know how valuable that shit is right there. But having like the San Francisco Police Department live monitor private business security cameras because of a protest, I don't know about that. I just don't know. The FBI contacting protesters, political donors, and if Fremo's here, I know what he'd say. He'd tell you flat out that there is people that are always, especially bigger protests, there's always people injected into the bigger protests that are there specifically to incite violence or to quell the masses or to just get a feel of what's going on. Always, there always will be, and there always has been. I don't know if I believe in this. So these businesses and stuff hit up the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically refused to hear the petition to review the legality of any of this, which I think is complete and utter bullshit. 100% bullshit. You're the Supreme Court. You should at least hear the argument, at the least, and possibly reevaluate the FBI and what powers they actually have, including local police departments. The fact that this petition, which is how we're supposed to speak our feelings, the fact that the petition to review the legality of it was thrown out of your court is disturbing and is a problem and needs to be addressed. That's all I'm really going to say about that. Let's get into the last story this week. Try to end it on a more funny note if possible. Not even funny, but a place that my wife and I wanted to go for a while with a couple of the kids, not all of them because they don't all like it. Disney is now going to be closing their Star Wars hotel. Closing it down. And it's only been open for a year. September 30th, the Halcyon will be closing. Disney didn't disclose why they were closing it, but I can give you an idea. I can give you the idea because for a couple to spend a weekend there, it's $4,800. As you see a picture, if you're watching the live show, if not, click on the link. It's a fucking hotel room, Star Wars themed. It's no different than, your first kid that you had and you themed up their room with Mario or unicorns or baseball or something else. It's no different. It's a fucking themed room, okay? And not to mention, I'm at Disney. I am not going to be spending a shit ton of time in my hotel room. I'm going to go enjoy Disney. So the fact that you're asking $4,800 for it, a couple, It's kind of a problem. For 2 adults and a child, it was about $5,300. And if you have 3 adults and a child, which basically is a young child, an older child, and you and your spouse, it's $6,000. Now, in Disney's defense, there was interaction with the Star Wars themed staff. There was a lot of things you could do in the hotel itself based upon, I would assume, your level of purchase within the hotel and how much you were adding on. There's personal adventures that pop up throughout the hotel. If you've ever been to a place like, I don't want to say Chuck E. Cheese, but like a water park, there's sometimes where you can have these little themed adventures. A water park we used to go to with the kids when they were younger. You could buy magic wands because Harry Potter is popular. So you can buy these magic wands, and they had these little iPads set up throughout the entire building that the kids could go up to and touch it with their wand and get clues to the next event or whatever, and eventually win a T-shirt or some shit. So they were doing stuff like that just on a more Disney level, which is fine. It's for adults and for kids. And everybody that did stay there said that the food was absolutely excellent. I know my wife and I, once we read this article, we learned about this. She immediately went out to Amazon and bought the cookbook that they have. But everyone was saying that the food was really excellent. But Disney's in the middle of trying to cut $5 billion in cost right now, like a lot of other companies. And they're also cutting 7,000 jobs. And as for somebody, like I said earlier in the show, as for somebody that's just recently narrowly survived massive cuts at your place of employment, I saw people that have been working there for 20 years just get let go, pulled into the office, and got their walking papers. To close out the show today, I just want to say that I think corporations themselves are way too greedy right now and making decisions for bottom line and not caring about their employees. And what they need to remember is that if you don't care about the employees don't care about the job they do. And if you want to make it so that this is a stepping stone place, and this goes for any business, not the business I'm in. Freeman and I had a discussion a couple of days ago over the phone on his way to Florida. We had a discussion about how little these larger corporations care now. They're so scared, especially these CEOs and higher up people. They're so terrified of possibly taking a pay cut. Instead of making $500,000 a year, they might have to make $250,000 a year. It doesn't even affect them, and I think it's absolutely shitty that they're thinking like this now. These are people's lives, and you'll be lucky to make 50, 60 grand and survive on that amount of money. And it's damn hard to do that, and it's damn hard to get a job that does pay that. And it's even harder when you get into that job and you realize how much they're actually asking you to do. Now, Gen Xers will tell you that, it's hard work. It's just simply hard work. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. That's what we're always going to do. I don't disagree. And we're coming into power. We've said this on the show multiple times that we're coming into that portion right now. But make no mistake, Gen X is split. We always have been and we always will be. There's those of us that grew up. Think of it like this. There's those of us that are blue collar and those of us that are white collar. Very much when we were growing up, Gen Xers, if you were middle class or lower middle class, that was the majority of us. A lot of us weren't a lot of upper middle class or upper class. Not many at all. But it's a definitive line in our generation. Definitive line. And neither side crosses ever. So the people that are a lot of times in these big corporations and businesses, the Gen Xers that are now coming into power are looking at the bottom line. And God forbid if they have to lose a dime themselves. It's shitty. But those of us that are on the other side of that line that are making them that money, they don't care. And you see that now. Look around, people. Look at the news. Read the news. Dig deep. Talk to somebody that might work there. They'll tell you flat out what it's like. They're making cuts and they don't care who they're cutting. They're just looking at the bottom line. They don't care how valuable they are as staff. They don't care. Your job's being eliminated. It's just that simple. It doesn't matter how much that that job title was valued or that position was valued in the company. We just decided overall that we're going to remove that. And all your responsibilities are going to fall on that guy that's the next level below you, and we're not going to pay them for that. And that's how we're going to continue to be in falling into this recession. And the 1% is going to continue to run this country. And it's not because we're letting them. We're not. There's so many people that are fighting back. I can tell you, I'm trying to decide what I can and can't say. I can tell you that in a corporation, and I don't want to say what corporation or what it was, but in a corporation I know about, 60 high-level, district-level people were getting their jobs eliminated. Now, it's so bad. I mean, these people are making 6 figures a year easy. Yet out of those 60, 44 of them decided to take the severance package because it just simply wasn't worth it anymore. It wasn't worth it. You're not being allowed to do things that you were normally able to do. You're not. Look at your own business. Turn around and look at your own business. How many asshats do you have working there? And they can't be fired. Like, it's almost impossible. Don't even talk about a union. Just without a union, they can't be fired. You have to go through 15 different steps in order to get them fired because they have to do the same thing over and over again. And most of them are smart enough where they don't do the same thing over again. They do something completely different wrong. But you can't fire them. You have to go through the paces of it. These idiots that shouldn't even have had this job to begin with. And obviously, so to give you some background, Gen Xers, when we were coming up, we do work a job. You are always on a 30 or 60 day or sometimes 90 day trial. Literally a trial. You were getting paid, absolutely. Probably not as much as you would in the full position, but you were still getting paid. And it was basically a trial. Will this fit for you? Will this work? You know, if you were in construction or boat building or something like that, it's a trial. They might have to turn to you and go, Bob, look, you obviously can't use a power tool. This job is not going to work out for you. We appreciate the time that you spend here. Good luck in your future endeavors. And you were let go. That's it. That's it. Done. Now, once you sign that paper, you're there. You can absolutely suck at your job. And let me tell you, at my job, I had an individual, I don't want to say his name on the air, but I had an individual that literally couldn't tie his shoes. He could not tie his shoes. He would wear his name tag upside down and think that it was correct. Just an absolute horrible employee. Could not let him go. Could not let him go. It took 8 months to get him out of there. It's ridiculous. 8 months. You know, thankfully, this particular individual ended up leaving because we just cut his hours until the point where he needed to find another job. But the projection was 8 months to get him out. And everybody knew that he couldn't do the job. It just wasn't a bad guy at all. Good guy. Just was not designed for the job we hired him for. Just wasn't. Couldn't do it. Yet here we are. That's enough for a rant. If you have a job, be thankful you have a job. If you're in a large corporation, I would strongly recommend buttoning up your resume because you never know what's going to happen. You just don't know. We're staring down the barrel. We haven't even hit a hard recession yet, but we're staring down the barrel of it. And it's going to get that resume ready. It's going to be a tough go. All right, so that's it for this week. 10's down, show's over.
So you can find more of this garbage at bgfgonline.com. You can also send us an email with your questions or suggestions at bgfgshow@gmail.com. Find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, Podcast, Castro, Castbox, Podchaser, and YouTube. Thank you for listening.